Hello, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be sharing with you tonight. This is the Kick the Sick webinar, and I'm looking forward to this because we've spent a lot of time in the office today talking about immune systems. Knowing that this event was coming, knowing that it's just that time of the year, I had a lot of conversations. You know, we're talking about what the immune system actually does. We're talking about catching a cold, not wanting to catch an illness or something that's going around. We're talking about rats in a dump. We'll get into that and how that affects your immune system. And this is really a hot topic. A lot of people want to know, how can they stay healthy? What can they do to boost their immune system? And all these things, because this is not a very fun time of year for that. It's a time of year that a lot of people are spending time maybe off work, kids are off school, dealing with lingering coughs and sore throats and fevers and ear infections and runny noses, and the list goes on. There's a lot of stuff that wears you down and a lot of stuff that we'd rather you not have to deal with. And I know that you don't want to have to deal with. So I'm excited because I know that what we're sharing tonight can possibly make a difference for you. Helping understand how the immune system works, what's normal, what's not normal, making sure that you understand what you can do to help is a huge piece of staying at your best. And I love the quote, something to do with, staying healthy, like someone who has their health has 1,000 wishes, but someone who does not have their health has but one wish. And the point is that when you're not feeling well, when you're feeling run down, when you're feeling sick and just not yourself, you don't really want anything else but to feel better. So that's why I'm excited, because I know that the information that we're sharing, because we get to live it and do it every day here at the practice in our own personal lives, is able to make a difference in your life. So who am I? You might be just joining us, tuning in because you found this online somewhere. My name is Dr. Andrew Rupp. I'm the owner and chiropractor here at Thrive Chiropractic, and we are a prenatal and pediatric focused practice. What I am myself is a family. We've got a little almost 2-year-old and one on the way, and what we get to do every day is spend time with families, which means that we get to deal with a lot of this sort of stuff. We get to deal with the runny noses and all the things that we just ran through. And there's a lot of families who are looking to just stay healthy. They want to maybe go from 20 missed days at school down to 10, or they want to go from 1 to 0, or wherever they're at. The point is that everyone wants to make sure that they're at their best, especially when it comes to our kids, because what every parent wants is for their kids to reach their full potential, right? So that's why I'm excited to share, because I've lived this personally with my own family, taking care of ourselves and doing our best to stay healthy, as well as it's what we get to do in the office every single day. So having that honor and pleasure to be a chiropractor means that our focus and what we do is centered on the nervous system. It's centered on how your brain's master controller, your body's master controller, the brain and the spinal cord, runs everything and coordinates everything. It's the most important piece of staying healthy, as well as the most important piece of every aspect of your life. So we'll talk about how that relates into all of this, as well as some other things you can do with diet and supplements and everything along those lines to make sure that you're at your best and make sure you're creating the healthiest internal environment. So that's kind of the outline of what we're going to be going through. Is let's talk about how the immune system is actually supposed to work. That quick, immediate response versus an antibody long-term reaction. We're not going to get too sciencey, too nerdy. It's not going to be boring. We'll make sure that it's practical and applicable to you, but we have to understand some of that background information. So we'll do that, figure out what's normal, related to some specific issues like the coughs and the sore throats and the runny noses, and say what's actually going on here. Do we need to intervene? Do we need to let our body run its course? As well as do the most important piece, which is give you some information that you can actually apply to your life. What should you eat or not eat? Supplements should you take or not do? How you can make sure that your nervous system is running the show properly and organizing all that is really the key that I hope that you get out of this evening in this Kick the Sick webinar, is stuff that you can apply. I love learning, but knowledge is not power. I know that's a common saying, knowledge is power. Knowledge is potential power. It's not until you put that into application, you actually do something about it, that it'll make a difference. So that's what I encourage you to do, is make sure that you don't just learn and then tune out tonight, but make sure that you actually apply it to your life and take action. Otherwise, it's not going to make a difference. So as we've been going through and sharing about the immune system and talking about that in the office recently, one of the things that I've said that's really caught a lot of people off guard is that, like I mentioned, I have a guy that's turning 2 in less than 2 weeks now, and I don't really mind if there's other kids around that are got the snotty nose, or they're sneezing or coughing or running a fever or anything like that, I don't, most parents are thinking like, okay, make sure they stay home, make sure they're not at daycare, at play dates or anything like that. It doesn't bother me. And the reason that it doesn't bother me has to do with rats in a dump. You might not see the connection here, but let me explain what I mean. Most people, like I mentioned earlier, when you think about fighting something off, when you think about it, anytime you're expressing symptoms or sick, so to speak, you think about, oh, I was exposed to a germ. I caught a cold, or I caught the flu, or you just happened to be exposed to the wrong germ on the wrong day, and bad luck. And while that is certainly a role, what's more important than just what we're exposed to is what's going on the inside. Because you've probably thought about this before. The people that you work with, that you're in the cubicles with or in the office with, the people that you eat lunch with every day, you're all surrounded by the same stuff. You're all breathing the same air, touching the same things, exposed to the same viruses, germs, and bacteria. Why is it that sometimes someone gets sick and someone else doesn't? If it was just what we're exposed to, wouldn't you think that we all would catch the same thing every time, all the time? And that's not the case, because that's not how our body works. What's a bigger factor than just what we're exposed to is how the internal environment is set up. It's how we're able to defend ourselves against that invader. It's basically how strong our immune system is. Because we're exposed to the same stuff, we just need to be able to fight it off better than others if we want to be the ones that are staying healthy. So what does that have to do with rats in a dump? Anytime, and by the way, I should make a point here. Say this if you're joining us live here, give a shout, give a hey, let me know any thoughts or feedback that you have. Once again, to make this applicable and make this valuable for you, I want to know what questions you have. I want to know what things that you would specifically like covered. What are some issues that maybe your kids are dealing with in particular, so we can make sure that we cover that and we make sure that we address your questions. So no giving away the rats in the dump answer, though, because I know some of you have heard this a few times this week. So back to explaining how that relates and how that connects. Is anytime there's a dump, anytime there's garbage or trash, rats are going to find their way there. You can put out rat traps, you can put out rat poison and different baits and things like that, and you're probably going to kill some of them. You're probably going to catch them in the traps, so they're going to eat the poison and then they're going to die, and you'll kill some of them. But as long as the trash, as long as the dump and the garbage is still there, the rats and the crap that you don't want there is going to be attracted to it, and it's going to be able to set up shop and settle in. That's how our body works. As long as our internal defenses is a dump or is crap or is garbage, germs, bacteria, viruses, they're going to be able to find their way in. Germs and those invaders aren't causing the diseases in a healthy environment. They're causing them in a sick, diseased, broken, dump, garbage environment. And so that's why, rather than focusing on what we can do to fight off the invaders or fight off the rats in our body, it makes a lot more sense to focus on keeping our immune system as clean as possible, keeping our immune system boosted, making sure our body is in a healthy state and is able to fight off these invaders instead of succumb to them. Same thing with the dump. If you really wanted to get rid of the rats, you wouldn't keep putting out more poison or more traps. You'd clean up the garbage. So that's the only way to truly make a difference. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that we do in healthcare and medicine aren't really addressing that underlying dump. They're not trying to improve the health of the organism. They're just trying to chase the rats out. They're trying to chase down the invaders and whatever is causing the symptoms, as opposed to really improving the overall health. If your body is a healthy state, if you have a clean environment, rats aren't going to be there because there's nothing for them to do. If your body's in a healthy, balanced state, if your immune system's strong, the germs, the invaders, the pathogens, they aren't able to set up and take hold internally, because your body is overpowering them and is winning that back and forth battle. So rats in a dump, that's what it has to do with the immune system. And what we want to keep in mind and understand is that I finger quote this word sick a lot, because it doesn't really, I think, paint a full picture. Because a lot of times what we describe as being sick isn't necessarily a bad thing. We'll talk about that here, vomiting or fever, coughing. Yes, it's the symptoms that we have when we think we're sick, but honestly, it's our body doing what it's supposed to do. And we really do need those immune system challenges. We need our immune system to react and to be able to engage and turn on. What happens if we live in a bubble, if we're not exposed to anything? We end up swinging in the other direction. We end up having long-term immune challenges. And that's what, to really understand what I'm talking about here and understand how our immune system works, I need to introduce these two concepts to here. So I've got my friend, the whiteboard out here. You may or may not be able to actually see or read it very well. Even the best camera is not going to understand my sloppy writing. So best of luck to you. But just kind of follow our train of thought, and you can see in general what we're referring to. But our immune system, split up into two parts. We've got Th1 and we've got the Th2 response. And these two responses serve different roles. The Th1, it says up top here, that Th1 response is our fast-acting immune system. Those cells in that part of the immune system are what we want to kick into high gear when something invades us. We want them to recognize that it's an invader, a bad bacteria, a bad germ, whatever it is. We want those cells to kick into high gear, to get it out of there, and then shut off. It's fast on and fast off. And that's what, when people say, they have a healthy immune system, that's what they're usually referring to, is they have a strong Th1 response. Their body does a really good job of not letting any invaders bunker down and take hold within their body. Other side here, Th2 system. The Th2 response is more of that antibody reaction. You've probably heard of antibodies. They're what our immune system uses to become aware of what we've been exposed to. Once you encounter a certain germ or disease, you create antibodies against it so that the next time you encounter it, you're able to respond much more quickly and much more effectively. That's how we're able to get immunity to diseases. Like I had the chicken pox as a kid, so I don't have to worry about catching the chicken pox anymore because my body's intelligent. It's able to create the antibodies and fight that off. So we've got these two sides. We've got the side that is kick it into high gear, troops on the ground fast, let's knock it out and let's be done. And then we've got the long-term antibody response. I said we want to focus on this Th1 side because that's what's keeping us healthy. That's what's keeping us, mostly free from symptoms. But also because if we have too much of this Th2 reaction, that's when we get into some issues. That's when we get into more of the long-term health challenges. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's noticed and realized that we've had major increases in asthma, allergies, chronic respiratory challenges, chronic immune system conditions. We are having less and less of the quick immune challenges and more of the long-term chronic debilitating things. So many kids have allergies to things like to peanuts. It used to be that you could take whatever you want to school. Now we have to be very conscious because a lot of kids have extreme allergies to something like a peanut. And there's a lot of other foods. There's more dairy allergies, more gluten allergies. And we could talk about how the food is changing and how all these other factors are at play here. But the bottom line is we've got too much of this Th2 response. Too much Th2 means our body's going to be overreactive, and that's going to lead to the long-term issues, autoimmune issues as well. As we age, those things turn into rheumatoid arthritis or other autoimmune challenges that I'm sure you've heard of and are familiar with. So the balance in between these two is a really important thing. If our body never has a chance to encounter invaders, if we're trying to live in a bubble, this Th1 response never gets to get activated. And that's another reason that I don't mind if my kid is around other kids who are fighting something off. Because I know if he encounters something, if the germs get spread, it's going to lead to a good outcome. It's going to lead to either him, his body, because it is supported well, because he has a properly balanced immune system and nervous system and somewhat healthy diet. I know it's going to be able to do a pretty good job of fighting that off. And if it doesn't, if it kind of gives ground to the invader and it has to express symptoms, it has to have a little bit of congestion or a runny nose or a cough to get that invader out of there, I know that he's going to be better off for that because it's going to not last that long. It's going to be temporary, and it's going to create better balance in the immune system because it's going to turn on this Th1 response. The inverse is true as well. If they're not exposed to different dirts or danders or things like that, if they're not given the chance to create an immune reaction, the troops never get practice, right? If your basketball team or football team never had a chance to practice, when it got time to be the game, it's going to be a sloppy mess. and that's going to lead to getting sick all the time. And when you do encounter the bugs, you're not able to kick it off. You're not able to kick back and fight it quickly because you're run down and you're not in practice. You don't have a healthy immune system. Does that make sense? Give me some feedback here. Let me know if that's a concept that you've heard before. Let me know if that is, maybe you've had multiple kids and one has been sick all the time and you've noticed certain trends. One has that healthy immune system and you wonder, oh, maybe this is why that takes place. There's a lot of other things that stimulate this Th1 or Th2 response. This Th1 response, that's what we call our brake pedal, our calming growth and development side of the nervous system. That's what is turning on and stimulating this Th1 response. Th2, that is our gas pedal. That is the stress, go, go, go survival mode. Just kind of a laundry list of things that contribute towards stimulating one or the other. Th1, a lot of that has to do with our microbiome, which is referring to the bacteria that are internal and that are surrounding us. So you hear people talking about probiotics or kombucha or different fermented foods. The reason that it's so powerful and they can be so beneficial is because of those probiotics. That plays a huge role in the Th1 response. And a lot of where we get our microbiome is from the birth process, through passing through the birth canal. So a vaginal delivery, a vaginal birth, is a huge, proponent towards that Th1 response. So vaginal delivery is going to help with that a lot. Breastfeeding is going to significantly stimulate and turn on that Th1 response because baby's receiving then those prebiotics, which are the nutrients that feed the good bacteria in your gut and in your immune system. They're receiving those prebiotics through mother's breast milk, that immediately made to order liquid gold that they create for babies. We've talked lots about breast milk on our nursing webinar and other things like that. So look those up on the Facebook page or YouTube channel if you want to learn a little bit more about how amazing breastfeeding is. So vaginal delivery, breastfeeding, a positive mindset, a positive outlook helps pump the brakes, calm the stress in our nervous system. So it's going to contribute to stimulating this Th1 response. Exposure to dirt, dust, dander, that sort of thing early in life gives you a chance to react to it, gives you a chance to build up the proper immune balance, everything we were talking about. Taking omega-3 supplements or making sure that's in your diet. Raw fruits and vegetables are going to give you the antioxidants and properties that are going to be the building blocks for these cells. Taking probiotics if you don't have the proper balance there. All these things are going to be stimulating that Th1 response. Th2 on the other side, we're going to be pushed towards that Th2 antibody mode if we're feeling stressed, if we're feeling overwhelmed, which is that gas pedal stress. We're going to be pushed towards that mode. Talking back with that microbiome in newborns again, C-section delivery, formula feeding contribute to that Th2 dominance because baby doesn't get passing through the birth canal and receiving that kind of washing of mom's flora. Formula feeding can be great for moms who are struggling with that, but the reality is it doesn't have some of the benefits that breast milk does. So formula feeding is not going to support the GI system and support that bacteria balance as well as breastfeeding would. So that is going to contribute towards the Th2 response. Antibiotic use, vaccination, those are all the way those affect the immune system. Obviously, vaccination has to create antibodies. So that's going to stimulate that Th2 response more than the other one. And then just highly processed, crappy food. The stuff that we all know is not good for us is going to be not building up health, and it's going to be contributing towards that overproductive, overreactive Th2. Once again, hope is beneficial, hope is helpful. Let me know if there's any questions or thoughts or feedback that you have either live or down the road here as we're checking comments and stuff like that. So what I think would be helpful if we related this newfound expertise and knowledge you have of the nervous system to a few specific challenges, and we can look at how does this relate to a cough or a sore throat or things like that. So we can then learn to apply that information when we're actually dealing with it, when we're expressing symptoms. That's going to be the new way that we talk about sickness. Sickness isn't necessarily a bad thing. expressing symptoms is what we're looking for, because like I said, you need to be able to have those experiences with the immune system in order to create balance for long-term life and not lead to the chronic immune challenges that come with an overreactive Th2 system. All right, so let's talk about cough. Cough is something that really wears on a lot of family. Raise your hand if you've ever had a kid who has been up all night or sleep has been interrupted, or maybe you yourself, because of a cough. A lot of times that is kind of the pattern it takes, is once we're laying down at the end of the night, what we thought was kind of going away and doing better starts rearing its head again. And the reason for that is we cough because there's something on the inside that wants to get on the outside. I know, that's revolutionary. You never knew that before. But it really is as simple as that. We cough because there's something irritating our respiratory tract, our lungs, and the pathways that get to there. And we're trying to get that out of our lungs and get it out of our body. Our immune system is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. So honestly, I can't think of a whole lot of scenarios where a cough is a bad thing. A cough is there if something has invaded to the point of being problematic. If there's an invader, a pathogen set up in your body, you want to get it out. Yes, if you're starting to experience airway constricting and narrowing, it's been that irritated that you're starting to close down, absolutely needs to be something that gets addressed medically. If there's an actual infection, a pneumonia or things like that, we need to make sure that we're getting the help that we need to give our immune system a boost to get over that. But for the most part, the coughs that we face are just our body working through something that it needs to deal with. If we give it the time, give it the ability to do that and support it internally through some of the things we're going to talk about at the end, it's able to leave us better off in the end. One cool example I can think of from just a couple months ago here at the office is we had a family whose little one, who is 3 now, was dealing with that croupy cough that you really you don't want to have to deal with. It had been, I think at this point, it had been 4 or 5, maybe 6 days of this really deep, bothersome cough. Been in the hospital a few times, had a few rounds of steroids, and it was really struggling. His body was really struggling to get it out. We're finally able to get him in for an adjustment, got that immune system boosted, got the Th2 system boosted, got his lungs moving and expanding through that upper thoracic adjustment, and Mom was thrilled. Said that night after that adjustment was breathing so much better, and really things had took a turn for the positive after that. Saw him again the next day, and it was pretty much done dealing with it. So just an example of how when we're dealing with a cough, when we're dealing with something like that, let's support our body in trying to get it out instead of suppressing the cough. If we try to shut the cough down, it's going to just lead to the junk staying on the inside when we need to get it out. And that's frustrating with kids sometimes because they don't know how to cough stuff up or spit it out when it comes out of their mouth. So it can be really challenging, but warm liquids and teas and things like that can help soothe that irritated tract. Another one, sore throats, draining, nose, sinuses. We'll just kind of wrap this all into one gooey, snotty, yucky bundle here. And the reason that I wrap it all into one is because it really is kind of all connected. When our throat is irritated, it's usually because there's drainage coming from the nose, the sinuses, the ENT tract, and it's coming down into our throat and it's bothering it. So the issue isn't necessarily with the throat, it's where that drainage is coming from. Really, it's a plumbing issue. We've got something that's not draining right. One of the ones that we see frequently are ear infections. And I love, in a twisted sense, ear infections with kiddos, because that's one of the ones that we've seen the highest and most awesome success with and impact with, because it's so intimately connected to the anatomy and the relationship of our upper cervical spine, the top part of the neck, that when we're able to make those adjustments and get those corrections and allow the plumbing to work better, allow the tubes to drain from our ears, and allow that fluid to not get gunked up and build up in the eustachian tubes, we've seen awesome changes of kids having ear infections every month on the brink of tubes to haven't had an ear infection in a year and a half. So we love being able to help out with those immune system challenges, because a lot of times that drainage is really just the missing piece. When they're getting congested, when they're getting the fluid build up and it's irritating the throat, we need to not necessarily just look at the throat. We need to address what's causing the buildup. Another thing that can be contributing to that, as well as the poor plumbing, would be inflammation. Inflammation coming from a whole host of things. Could be that you're consuming crappy food, that your diet is full of junk. Maybe you're exposed to different things in your environment at work or home or whatever that's pushing your immune system and body towards a state of more inflammation. But there's something that's not in balance in your immune system. There's not proper coordination between this Th2 and Th1 reaction, and that's going to lead to a lot of issues. So that's why addressing all of those components, addressing the inflammation, helping calm that within ourselves, within the internal environment, making sure the immune system is balanced and active, and then addressing those plumbing issues can really help both get through those things quicker, as well as not deal with them as frequently or as often. And that's something that I really should have mentioned earlier, is that when you're taking care of yourself, when you're eating right, when you're well adjusted, your nervous system's balanced, your immune system is doing what it's supposed to do, it's not that you're never going to express symptoms or get sick, but it's going to happen a lot less often. And instead of lasting a week or two, like it does for your friends and neighbors, and they're taking medications the whole time, it's going to be a day or two. Your body's going to kick it out. You're going to get back on track. And you're going to be better off for it. So it's not that our kiddos and ourselves as adults will never get sick when we're doing everything that we should be. It's just that we want it to last a lot less, have a lot less duration there, as well as happen a lot less frequently, instead of being chronic things that are keeping them out of school every month. Maybe it happens once a year. But anyways, moving on to another thing that we've got to deal with a lot, fever. I know this is one that really freaks parents out and stresses people out, because it's scary. Fever, when that number climbs, you're taking it every 10 minutes and you're obsessing over, we went from 101.5 to 101.8 and so on. And there are absolutely situations and instances in which we need to be very aware of what that number is. With newborns, specifically with very little ones, they're not able to regulate their body in the same way that they are a few months later. So we need to be very on top of and aware of what's going on. But by and large, think about this. Our fever, is it really a bad thing? If we were going camping, if we there's 1,000 you're stuck in the wilderness shows these days, right? In any of those instances, if they have water that isn't necessarily clean, everyone knows that you should boil the water to try to kill some of the potentially harmful things that are within it. But we kind of forget that that's what our body's trying to do when we have a fever. It's kicking up the body temperature so that our immune system can get the upper hand on what is irritating it and what is bothering it. That increased body temperature is going to negatively affect the bacteria, the virus, the invader, and it's going to give our immune system the ability to fight it off and to win that battle, to have a healthier response there. So fever in our book is not a bad thing. What we want to monitor, more so than the number, is how is the child responding? How are they acting? If they're still interacting, if they're eating, drinking, especially drinking, we want to make sure that they're getting hydrated. If they're playing still and just somewhat slowed down by everything that they're dealing with, they're doing great. We want their body to keep on keeping on. We want that fever to do what it's supposed to do. And honestly, suppressing it at that point, taking some sort of antipyretic or something that's going to lower the fever, is going to be doing your body a disservice, because it's working against yourself. It's working against your immune system that's trying to fight off the invader. So we want to be careful to monitor activity, to make sure that they're not all of a sudden acting lethargic and not responding and slurring speech and some of these different indicators that we look for, dry eyes, blank expressions. But as long as they're still themselves, we want to trust that their body's doing what it's supposed to do, and it's able to have a healthy immune response. And we can just support them through that, through lots of hugs and loves and cuddles and kisses, through lots of water, lots of hydration, and other immune system boosters that we'll touch on here in a second. Some other stuff, allergies, you probably get the drill by now. It's not normal. It's extremely common these days, but dealing with chronic allergies is not something that is just written off as, oh, I have allergies. It's just this what it is. It's a sign that this balance is not right. It's not what it should be. We have too much TH2 activity. There's too many antibodies being produced, and our body's starting to react to things that are not really worth reacting to. That's what an allergy is we're responding over and above what a normal immune response should be. So what we want to do is everything we're talking about is working to balance that TH1 versus TH2 response, calm the stress, pump the brakes neurologically, and really bring balance back into that system. This is thinking back to some of our cases and patients in the office. I mentioned the immune system, or the ear infections and the cough, who we've had lots of cases that respond extremely well, that once you give them that boost, that couple adjustments that they need, they're off and running, and that's all they needed. Allergies are a little different. Allergies are this buildup of a chronic TH2 dominance, and it takes time to bring that back to a normal range. It'll probably take a few seasons, a few cycles of lowering that imbalance, keeping it in a healthy range, and basically teaching the nervous system that this is your new normal. This is what I want you to react to and respond with, not that overabundance of immune reactivity. Another one, fatigue, feeling cranky. I think we could all point out, not so much at Zeke's age here, our son, but 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, you can tell when your kid's about to start dealing with something because their mood changes. They just get cranky, get irritable, and then when you're in the midst of that, you're just worn out, you're fatigued, you're run down, because your body is working overtime, doing everything it needs to do to fight off the infection. If your body's constantly, and if you think about it pretty simply, we have limited resources, limited energy within our body, and if it's using a lot on the immune system, if it's using a lot to fight something off, it's just going to be worn down. It's going to force you to slow down, take it easy, and rest, because that's really what you need. Something that's going to make that so much worse is if your nervous system is inefficient. If your nervous system is wasting energy and not organized and coordinated properly, that's going to leave your body even more drained, even more run down, which means you're going to lead to more likelihood of getting sick, more likelihood of being fatigued and feeling run down, because you're running on depleted resources. And that specifically, I'll use that as kind of a springboard to talk a little bit about how the nervous system and how our care relates to all of this. Because one of the things that we'll do in the office as your first visit is a few scans that are assessing your nervous system, that are really measuring how is your body doing. We're going to measure, are you in a happy, balanced, calm, brake pedal growth and development mode? Or is your body in a fight or flight, stress, go, 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 survival mode? You can't be in growth and development at the same time that you're in survival mode. So it's one or the other. And we'll get to measure and we'll get to see, how are you functioning? How are you handling whatever life is throwing your way? Maybe you feel like you're doing a pretty good job, but what we can see and measure is your body's run down. It's stuck in that gas pedal, fight or flight overdrive. So that's one of the scans that we're going to do. A few others are going to measure specifically where that inflammation is within your body, where your nervous system is irritated and not coordinated and functioning as well as it should. We see certain patterns on patients who have chronic allergies or recurring ear infections or long-term coughs. We see different patterns and different scan presentations depending on what they're dealing with and what they're going through. But all of it gives us information, objectively quantified information on what's going on so we can know how we can best help. And then we repeat those scans throughout care at designated intervals so that we can make sure that there's changes, so we can make sure that you're having progress and seeing things alter as you go throughout care. So that's really the main thing as we're getting into what you can apply and how you can actually make a difference for you and your family this winter, is you got to make sure that your master controller, your brain, your spinal cord, and your nervous system are running the show properly. If that's off, everything else is going to be diminished or weakened because you're not able to properly coordinate. You're not able to properly organize everything that your immune system's trying to do. And that goes for whether you are the extreme of the extreme, have had rounds of ear infection tubes, you're dealing with the croupy coughs, and you're the person who spends all winter sick, or if you're a family that's healthy and just wants to make sure that they're staying healthy and staying at their best. We can see what's going on with those scans. We can make sure that there's nothing hiding under the surface, and we'll have different plans accordingly to make sure that you're getting the results, getting the changes that you need to have so your body's at its optimal state. So that's really the main thing that we've got to focus on and to make sure is at its best, is making sure that brake pedal, TH1, nervous system response is what it should be. There are absolutely some other complementary recommendations along with that personally we put into play and practice with our family, and that we talk about and recommend for other patients as well. One here, that's kind of what we'll overview with as far as supplementation. Well, let me back up. I'm going to start at the top. Probably why I wrote it in that order. Let's talk about what we should eat dietary-wise. When we're specifically fighting something off, when we feel our body expressing those symptoms, and really probably just as a general rule of thumb so we don't get to that point, we really want to make sure that we step up our clean diet game, meaning we don't want to be having any extra added sugars. We really want to do our best to avoid dairy, milks, cheeses, yogurts, things like that. Those are going to create more mucus internally. And overall, we just want to avoid as much junk food as we can. That junk food is going to be turning down our immune system. It's going to be weakening its ability to react and respond, which is just going to make us deal with that sickness and illness even longer. And same with, hopefully this doesn't apply to your kids, but that would be a time to be avoiding alcohol, to be avoiding pops and sodas and things like that that are going to be weakening that immune system and not contributing to a healthy balance there. Extra water, that's a huge one always, especially, like I said, when a little one is not eating and they're not able to tell us what's going on as much. Want to make sure that they're drinking. If they're in diapers, we want to make sure that they're getting regular wet diapers still and not getting dehydrated. Extremely, extremely important to pump those fluids. Even more so with water, say we're dealing with more of the cough, sore throat, irritations, warm liquids are incredibly soothing. So it could be soups made with bone broths, homemade soups, not the cheap canned ones that are going to be full of the junk that we're trying to avoid. But those are going to really do a lot to soothe that irritation in the immune system. Tea is a great one as well. It's that warm liquid, and also add a little bit of a local honey into it, because then you get the benefits of some of the local immune system boosting properties. So tea with honey is one that just makes everybody happy, right? So some other recommendations here. Core 4, that's what we talk about. Our Core 4 supplements are what I take every day, what we recommend for patients, not because there's any special health condition or need that they have, just to fill in the gaps of the way our diets fall short. So the Core 4, that refers to a multivitamin, an omega-3 supplement, an extra vitamin D boost, and a probiotic. I can explain more on why those take place, but you can probably just check out our article on our blog and that'll do a better job of it. So Core 4, that's something that we should always have in play, because that's going to keep us from getting sick and is going to get us through those illnesses just as well. But when we are in the midst of expressing symptoms, fighting something off, for whatever reason our body's been weakened and dampened, there are a few things that we amp up and put into play that can help get over whatever you're dealing with even more quickly. One of them that we are quick to jump to is elderberry syrup. Elderberry syrup is great for overall immune system boosting, but especially if there's any sort of throat or cough irritation. Elderberry syrup does a great job of boosting the immune system and getting you through that even faster. Garlic. It's as simple as taking a clove of garlic, chopping it up, putting it on a spoon, and swallowing it. You can eat it raw if you'd like. You can add it into cooking. You can do a lot of different things. Put it in salad dressings. But garlic is going to have those incredible immune system boosting properties as well. Cooking with it is great as well. But honestly, just taking a spoonful raw is incredibly powerful. And it's not as crazy, it's not as weird as it sounds. You're not like chewing it up. What I've done before is literally just dice up a clove of garlic, not putting it through the press, because that would probably release a lot of the juices more and taste a little bit different. But chopping it up, just putting on a spoonful, putting it in my mouth and swallowing it like I would swallow a multivitamin or something like that. So don't freak out too much. You can do it. Swallow the raw garlic. Another thing, we call this our special apple juice. It's a combination of a few different things. About a teaspoon or so of cinnamon. I can't tell you the last time I've actually measured these things out. So these are rough estimates. Get a little glass, and usually I put a couple tablespoons of honey on the bottom, and then a teaspoon of cinnamon. Mix that all up really well with a spoon, because once you add the liquid, the cinnamon is not going to combine. But get the honey and the cinnamon mixed together really well, and then add in a little bit of hot water. Doesn't need to be boiling, but we've got a tea kettle with a temperature on it. Usually have around 150, 160, enough to melt the honey and get it all combined. And then with that, add a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Really add as much apple cider vinegar as you can handle. That's going to be what really packs a punch and is what you taste primarily. So that's something that we use as well, that special apple juice, apple cider vinegar, cinnamon, honey combination to do a awesome number on boosting the immune system as a whole, but specifically helping sinuses get moving, get draining. Anyone who's taken like a shot of apple cider vinegar or use it at all knows that it wakes you up a little bit. If you want to skip coffee one morning but get alert and up and at 'em, do a little bit of apple cider vinegar. It'll be quite effective at getting you up and running. All right, we can talk about 1,000 different things of nature's medicine cabinet, and honestly, I'd love to do a workshop or a webinar someday on, what are other things from supplements and essential oils and things within nature that we can use to not treat our symptoms or treat any of these things, but help support optimal health. That's what we're always striving to do. Is we don't want to, both with our care as well as with what we're trying to do to support the body, it's never to treat a specific element or issue. It's to make sure that you're functioning at your best. And when that takes place, you're going to stay healthy, you're going to be well. So I appreciate you guys tuning in, hanging out. I hope it was valuable for you. And really, if you take this information, not just learn it, but apply it to your life, this season, this winter can go a lot differently than once have previously. So I encourage you to follow these steps, do those things you need to boost your immune system. But more than anything, give us a call. We'll talk a little bit about what it means to get under care and what that process looks like, everything that you need to know to what to expect. We offer everyone a complimentary consultation to begin that process, to make sure that we're the right fit for your health goals, to make sure that you know what you're getting into and you know what's going on when you start care. So please don't hesitate to reach out, call, comment with any questions. We'll do our best to address them, to get you the answers you need. Because honestly, I think every family deserves to be feeling well, to be functioning well, to be at their best. So thank you guys. Have a great night, and look forward to talking again soon.